Test one, 1, 2.
Hello, hello. There we go.
All right, good evening. We will convene City Council meeting of September 21st, 2024. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance as you may. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please call roll?
Councilmember Lowe? Here. Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas?
Here.
Councilmember Wellander?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
Present.
Mayor Gurney?
Present.
Thank you.
All right. The council had a closed session this evening, and there is actually no actionable report other than direction to staff. And now we will request approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved. I second.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wellander?
Yes.
Mayor Dean, or I'm sorry, Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Gurney?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion
the
carries
mayors.
unanimously.
All right. Are there any meeting dedications tonight? Seeing none, we move on to the council member reports and comments. Do we have any? Yes.
All right.
Mr. Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Gurney. During the past 2 weeks, I attend several the events representing the city. Last Thursday, that is February 15, I was attending Zero Waste Sonoma. That is the monthly meeting in Santa Rosa. Basically, we approved 2025 to the 2025 and the final budget. And also, we got approved organic disposal fees and agency surcharge fees increase resolution. And also, we agree to join the sponsorship of the marine flare producer responsibility. That is for the boats, for the ocean, and usually that is the community take care. But right now, we need to set up the law, allow the producer to take responsibility for these kind of fireworks. Yeah. And also, we agree to started to make a research for the household and the hazard waste the treatment, and also extended producer responsibility. That is my first meeting. The second meeting, that is last Friday, February 16. On behalf of the council member in the Lowe, I was attending the Mayors and the Council Members Association of Sonoma County to as a representative, legislative committee and the representative. Basically, we updated all on the current and the state levels registration and the bills situation. And also each the city got updated for what's going on each town. Thank you, Jerry.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ding. And I'm going to take a pause on council member comments. I neglected, and I apologize, comments from the public. That's actually the first thing we should be doing. And so please, if there's anybody who's here to comment on something that's not on the agenda, please come forward. Mr. Barnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm saddened to report to you and to the community the death of Val Robichaud, the publisher and editor of the Sonoma Valley Sun newspaper. He died last Friday. I don't have a lot of details, but apparently he suffered some kind of cardiac event and was taken to Santa Rosa Memorial Hospital, where he died in the emergency room. I worked very closely with Val for almost 20 years now, and both as a contributor and as a member of the editorial board. And Val was a lovely, complicated person whose devotion to this little newspaper was remarkable. And issue after issue, he would get it out, and never made much money. It's really a volunteer effort, and Val was the only paid employee. And it was both his passion and the way he earned a living. At this point, I can't tell you what the future of the publication will be. A number of us are exploring our options, and we'll see what comes out of it. But I did want to let you know and the community know about his passing. It's a loss. He's survived by his sister, who lives in the valley, and his daughter, who is 20, and unfortunately, when he died, is studying in Italy. And so the delay in announcing his passing was contingent on her finding out about it first before the word was put out. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi, Mayor Gurney, council members. My name is Lexi Bakar. This is Rocco. I'm a resident of Sonoma. So is he. I find it impossible to look at my children without seeing the faces of the babies in Gaza. Those who have not been killed are left alone, struggling to find clean food, water, and care. Everyone in this room is familiar with the impacts of the 2017 fires and the pandemic on Sonoma County youth. Because of these traumatic events, we are seeing behavioral issues, educational setbacks, and an increase in mental health challenges. Now imagine the profound impact this war will have on current and future generations of Palestinians. 13,000 children have been killed, and countless more are buried under rubble. To offer perspective, there are 10,000 people in Sonoma County, in Sonoma. So that's everyone in Sonoma and more gone. Sorry. Fussy baby. Try this. I believe we have a moral obligation to demand a ceasefire. What we are witnessing in it is a genocide unfolding. Can you take the mic? Sorry, he's upset too. Okay. What we are witnessing is a genocide unfolding in real time, streamed on our smartphones. We carry within our pockets the cries and images of brave Palestinians begging the world for help. We're seeing journalists and medical workers targeted and murdered, infants maimed, and orphans pleading for sustenance, yet we avert our eyes. You have the power, Mayor Gurney and council members, to do something, to show the world that Sonoma refuses to tolerate this brutality and devastation, that you would rather our $200,000 that Sonoma pays in federal taxes to Israel for weapons be instead used locally to uplift and educate youth, to house the unhoused, and to feed the hungry. I urge you, if you haven't already, to educate yourself on the history of Palestine. In the future, when you reflect upon this moment, will you say that you wielded your power for good or that you did nothing? I beg you to listen to the voices of Sonoma youth who are spearheading this initiative, and please adapt and pass a resolution for an immediate ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes.
Good evening, council members. It's nice to see you. Some of you I know, and some of you I'm just meeting. My name is Maria Barakat. I am an Arab American with family from Lebanon and Palestine. I'm also a Sonoman. My heart is in Sonoma. I met my partner here. I run these streets every day on the unceded land of the Miwok, Pomo, and Wapo tribes. My heart is also in public policy. I have a master's in public policy from UC Berkeley. I'm a product of this rigorous California academia. And I know that justice is what love looks like in the public. I know that public policy has the power to be transformative when it's rooted in racial equity. I also know that this historic body of Sonoma's City Council has weighed in against apartheid, South Africa, and the Vietnam War. I know that this body understands that public policy can be linked to global justice and that the local is global. Today, you all face, like the rest of us, a complex moment in history where we're all forced to watch a live-streamed genocide happening. Nobody asked to be put in the positions that we're in, and neither did they. Today is day 140 of the mass murder of Palestinians with U.S. bombs and guns. Did you know that California provides $609 million in federal tax funds to military aid alone for the state of Israel? Did you know that Sonoma County provides $200,000 of that every year? I stand before you to ask you to put a ceasefire resolution on the agenda and to pass it. Our federal leaders and our state leaders are not listening to us, the people who are paying close attention to what is happening. We need our local bodies to represent a voice of peace and justice for safety for Israelis, for the Jewish community, for Palestinians, for Arab Americans living in Sonoma County and in this city. We say no to anti-Semitism and to anti-Arab hate. Cities around the country and state are taking this stand. It's our turn to tell our state and our federal representatives to halt this killing, to allow humanitarian aid into the people of Gaza. To halt the killing. That is our moral obligation.
All right, thank you.
Hello, City Council members. First of all, I wanted to thank the City Council members for not putting the ceasefire resolution on agenda tonight. Since October 7th, my wife and I organized the Sonoma County chapter of the organization Bring Them Home Now that advocates for the release of all hostages kidnapped by Hamas. As part of our advocacy, every Sunday we walk with a group of supporters trying to bring awareness to the hostage situation in Gaza and demanding the immediate release of hostages. On average, people are supportive of our cause. But we also were yelled and were accused of being genocide supporters. And you just heard the word genocide from the previous speaker. The word genocide is used by many when describing the defensive war in Gaza, and also has been used lately to delegitimize and demonize Israel. Its inaccurate description of the defensive war against Hamas leads to a situation where Jews like me are singled out, isolated, and attacked. I know what a genocide is. My great-grandmother was killed by the Nazis. Defensive war in Gaza is not genocide. What happened on October 7th is. Wars are horrific. We all sympathize with civilians killed in the conflict. It could stop tomorrow if Hamas releases the hostages and surrenders. If we have to draw a historic comparison, we'll need to go back to World War II when Allied forces were advancing on Germany. I doubt that anyone in America have advocated for a ceasefire with Nazi Germany back at that time. Hamas are the new Nazis. Today, the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel submitted a comprehensive and horrific new report on the United Nations, or to the United Nations, detailing the vicious, deliberate, and widespread sexual violence perpetrated by Hamas. For many Jews like me, what happened October 7th is a Holocaust of today, smaller in scale, but horrific and very sadistic. Our ally in the Middle East is the Democratic State of Israel. Hamas allies are Iran, and Russia. Gaza has to be free of Hamas. Why would a city council discuss a ceasefire with a terrorist organization that has broken every previous ceasefire, killed, raped, and mutilated innocent citizens? Instead of ceasefire, we, as citizens, not the city council, need to demand Hamas surrender, hostage release, and an international trial of Hamas leaders, similar to what Nuremberg trials was. I believe City Council need to focus on the city needs and not try to solve an international conflict that can only lead to feeding anger and bringing more divide to this community. Thank you.
Esteemed City Council members, it's a pleasure to meet all of you. My name is Andrew Engdahl, and I'm presently a candidate for Congress in California's District 4, would represent the people of Sonoma. I'm here today to speak on behalf of my constituents that are in favor of a ceasefire. I just wanted to put into perspective that this was something that has been discussed in Sebastopol as well as in Santa Rosa. And I implore you to join us in calling for a ceasefire as well. You wouldn't be the only city to join this in California. Cotati, Davis, Richmond, Alameda, Oakland, San Francisco, Cudahy, and Long Beach have all joined on with calling for a ceasefire resolution. And this is in the interest of the city, in the sense that when Congress passes any kind of resolution like this, they're going to be looking to all of the cities across the country in the districts that are represented by Congress members to get consensus on if there is enough of a national interest in calling for something like this. To be clear, I and those who stand with me oppose all forms of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, racism, bigotry, and genocide. And I will always stand as an advocate for the dignity and safety of people in every community, regardless of skin color, ethnicity, or creed. I do condemn the actions of Hamas in the murder of 1,200 innocent Israeli civilians and the taking of 253 other hostages on October 7th. But I do want to clarify that as of last week, 28,000 Palestinians have been killed in this conflict in less than 4 months. Again, in addition to that, 68,000 Palestinians have been injured in the shelling that they have been receiving. 500,000 people are presently at risk of famine and disease without immediate humanitarian aid. Half of the buildings in Gaza have been leveled to the ground. And to put it in perspective, since this last week, so I gave that address on Tuesday of last week in the Santa Rosa City Council meeting, almost as many people that were killed on October 7th have also died in the week that we have done nothing to stop the shelling. I want to also put in clarification, because many people may not know this about the Gaza population. There's roughly 2 million people in this strip of land. Roughly 40% of these people are under the age of 14. When you put that in perspective with how many people are at risk of starving right now and exposure, we have a moral obligation to do something about this. This is our weapons, this is our money that's going towards this. I hope that that cooler heads will prevail and that more voices will join us in the name of peace, love, unity, and the respect of the humanity of all, to support House Resolution 786, and call upon Congress for an immediate and permanent ceasefire to this present conflict, for the release of all hostages, and the unrestricted entry of humanitarian aid to Gaza. I ask for this so that we can save the lives of those that are still in danger, and that I hope that we will have the courage to choose a better path than the one that we have been set upon, so that love and justice for desperate people in the need of aid and a brighter future will have the final word. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments. My name is Seth Donnelly. I'm a Sonoma resident, son of John Donnelly, and also a high school teacher, and work with an organization called the Center for People Power. I also wanted to urge the City Council to go on record pushing for a ceasefire. I do think what we are seeing unfold in Gaza is a genocide. The gentleman, speaker before last, mentioned the Nuremberg trials. Nuremberg principles are very clear. You don't target an entire population. Cutting off water, electricity, and food to an entire population while bombing everywhere they go with U.S.-made weapons clearly fits the standard of genocide, and it is not a defensive war. The settlements, West Bank and Gaza, have been ruled repeatedly illegal by the United Nations, international law. The border wall has been ruled illegal repeatedly as well. So these are violations of international law that we are witnessing. And of course, I condemn the violence on October 7th. But we have to understand the broader picture here, which is that the Palestinian people have been steadily pushed off their land onto reservations, and now in the largest open-air prison on the planet, according to the United Nations, they are being decimated with U.S.-made weapons, 2,000-pound bombs. I don't know if you guys saw that New York Times video that showed the impact of those bombs that the Biden administration fast-tracked around Congress. Yesterday there was a vote by the United Nations Security Council, 13 for a ceasefire, 1 against the U.S. It matters. As a high school teacher, my students met with Representative Mike Thompson a few weeks ago, pushing for a ceasefire. And if he sees that other city councils, like ours, like Cotati, like throughout Sonoma County, say no, that matters, just like it did in the fight against apartheid South Africa, and just like it did in the fight against the Vietnam War. So I implore you, as a resident of Sonoma, take the right stand. This is clearly a genocide. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allie Deering, and I am also calling and asking you all to consider a ceasefire resolution. I work in the city of Sonoma, so I know that Sonoma is more than just wine and tourism, that we have a deeply and richly embedded culture that includes peace and wanting people to be safe. I spend a lot of my free time present day advocating for a ceasefire and a liberated Palestine. And it is a little jarring to enter Sonoma and feel like that conversation is maybe not as popular or prevalent. And it's difficult to be met with silence and indifference. We know that the illegal occupation of Palestine has been happening since 1948. And we also know that in 4 months, 30,000 Palestinians have been killed by American-funded Israeli air, ground, and sea strikes. We also know that thousands of people are still under the rubble and unaccounted for. 30,000 Palestinians have been killed in 4 months, and that is the equivalent of 3 city of Sonomas. We believe and we know that this is not political, is not complicated, and it is not about religion. The simple fact is, if this was happening here to us or to our neighbors, we would be begging towns like Sonoma to help. Please consider a ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Hello, y'all. My name is Roni Mad. My pronouns are they, them. I grew up here in Sonoma Valley, a dragon. And I'm also here asking you to please support the ceasefire resolution. I'm here speaking to y'all as a human being, pleading you to please see the humanity in Palestinians. I have witnessed so many children martyred on my Instagram, and it's been very difficult to be able to rest these nights and live life normally, knowing that there's kids in Lebanon and Palestine not being able to live their life. There was a 6-year-old girl named Hind who was targeted by an airstrike as she was in a car with her family. She was trapped there with her family's corpses and called for help, and unfortunately she did not receive help. She was 6 years old. When I was 6 years old, I was playing in the playgrounds up at Verona Elementary. I was playing with my friends. I was getting to know my elementary school teachers. There's also another girl that I follow on Instagram. Her name's Nadine. She's 13 years old. When I was 13 years old, I was at Adele Harrison Middle School, fangirling about One Direction and chismeando con mis amiguis on in the blacktop and whatnot. So the fact that I'm able to have these real life human experiences in this beautiful town, whereas these children are not even allowed to eat. They're being starved. North Gaza is being starved. No aid is being allowed in. The U.S. has been vetoing every single ceasefire resolution, and that's why we're coming here to you, asking you to please be our voice, to tell our representatives, our federal representatives, Mike Thompson, Alex Padilla, and LaFonda Butler, to please listen to us, because we're not going to stop fighting for Palestine. We're going to keep speaking up for Palestine because no one is speaking up on behalf of them. And to see the censorship happen on social media is so scary. So please support this resolution. I also wanted to add that back in 2019, I was here in the same space advocating for $15 an hour as the minimum wage, and Sonoma was actually the first city to pass it in our county. So I'm really begging you to follow Qatari's lead and also support the ceasefire resolution. Back in 2018, I was also here to receive my Student of the Year award. So I've been in this space multiple times, and I love Sonoma. Sonoma is my hometown. It has a special place in my heart. So I will always love Sonoma. So please support a ceasefire resolution. I'm begging you. There's so much. I don't have enough time to say every single thing, but please, thank you for your time.
Okay. Public comment? And it's something that's not on the agenda.
Hi, my name is Alex Garcia. I am an artist and I educate children here in the Sonoma Valley. And the reason I'm here is that for the past 100 and something days, I have seen acts of war committed against civilian population. And also the fact that I pay with my tax dollars to fund those bombs, those missiles, those bullets. And every year, not only in military aid, but economic aid, we send $15 billion to Israel. And just a few weeks ago, we were cutting students, librarians, gardeners, and people that are supposed to help, our children here. So the reason I'm here is that I see a very big disconnect in the way that people are talking and the way that they're acting. When I see the people dying on the streets in Palestine, and I see elected leaders that we have here in the United States saying that Israel has the right to defend themselves, even if it means killing children, little kids, babies. Most of the people that have died are not even minors, they're children. They're younger than the age of 12. So I grew up here in Sonoma. I was born here at the high school, or in the here at the hospital, and I went to high school here. And when I was first born, I lived right behind the barracks, which, as many of you know, is a Indian burial ground. And those Indians were the subject of genocide. And if you look around, there's no Native Americans here because they were all killed or driven out. So my main thing is that I don't want to grow up in a place and live in a place and support a community in a place that supports the same thing that happened to the Native Americans who lived here. I don't want to have to, look and see a map that used to say Palestine and most of the people being gone or dead. That's something, I really see that. And I'm supporting that with my tax dollars, with the money that I make every day I go and I pay into these coffers. And it just shows me where the priorities of this country are. So voting for a ceasefire would set a precedent. It's not going to change what people are doing in Israel per se, but what it will do is it'll say that we don't stand for white supremacy, we don't stand for racism, we don't support killing children with our money. And, I want to live in a place that is fair for everyone, not just for the people of a certain skin or a certain religion. Most of the people here in this county are Christians, they're whites. There's barely any black people that live here, and there's a reason for that. there were Chinese people that built the railroad here. They're not here anymore, and there's a reason for that. So if we can change that, then I can teach these kids that, you know, we've got a real future for us. So thank you.
Hello. I just wanted to introduce myself. I don't have anything prepared, but I am a Sonoma resident, and I'm a proud Palestinian. My dad left the West Bank, was forced out of the West Bank in the 60s, and I'm here now. My story's long. I don't want to bore you all with all of it. Hi, Ellie. But I'm sorry, I'm really nervous right now. But I just wanted to, as a Sonoma resident, I wanted to urge you to call for a ceasefire. I have family there. I don't know if I'll ever be able to go to Palestine. Just a heads up for those of you that are unaware. I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. I don't want to stand here and cry in front of you guys.
It's okay. Could you state your name, please, just so that we
My
know?
name is Reham Erikat.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please call for a ceasefire.
Anybody else? Going once, twice. Yes?
Hi, my name is Hobby. I also use they and their pronouns, and I'm just here urging you as a former or Sonoma Valley resident to please support the ceasefire.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the council. And we had begun the council member reports. Let's continue that, and I think Ms. Farrar-Rivas, you're up.
It's a little difficult to jump right into this after that. I know I'm supposed to be not always show reaction or emotions, but that was all very emotional. I want to let you all know that I really listened and I heard everything that you said. So I attended the library meeting, the library board meeting on February 8th. So they had good news at the library. They had 4.2 million in checkouts, which is the highest that they've had. That means checkout of books. That doesn't mean people just checked out. So, and that was the highest in 7 years. Their physical circulation is up 25%, but one of the things is that they need additional space. They have absolutely no space for storage at the library. And that also came about as someone coming in and doing an ADA audit and saying there's one small closet that needed to be reorganized so that it was ADA accessible, which means that, you know, that was the only place for storage, and so it even limited the storage even more. So one of the things is there's low renewals for friends of the library. So anybody that wants to become a friend of the library should consider doing that. If you want to become if you don't have a library card, people should consider getting a library card. And then on February 15th, I attended with a few of our other council members the North Bay Cal Cities event in Petaluma, and it was a presentation by the BAFA board, which is the Bay Area Housing Finance Authority, the MTC Commission, which is the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and ABAG, which is the Association of Bay Area Government. There was a presentation by Kate Hartley. She's the director of BAFA, and what they presented to us is a potential affordable housing bond that is potentially going to get on our November ballot. And which would bring significant money to the county and potentially to the city of Sonoma to be able to dedicate towards protection, preservation, and production of housing. So that's my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wellander?
Yes, thank you. Last Thursday, I had the opportunity to join the mayor for a dinner up in Cloverdale. It was meeting with fellow mayors and council members. It was, again, a chance to interact and just get an understanding of some of the challenges that these other communities are facing. So that's the sum total of my involvement.
Thank you. Ms. Lowe?
Today I participated in the Coastal Cities update, and you may not think we're a coastal city, but if the sea level continues to rise, we will be. And if you get down to the corner of 8th Street and 121, you can't tell me that doesn't look much like the coast these days. So anyway, it was very interesting to look at how this was put on by the League of Cities, how the different cities are approaching this, and I learned a lot from that. And then I was also obviously at the meeting regarding the housing bond. And then at the last meeting, I mentioned that I'm on the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, and I neglected to bring this book, which I'm going to leave with the clerk. And people can look up what the projects are, what's going on as far as transportation is concerned. There's, maps and really good information in here. And I want to leave it in case anyone wants to look at it or have reference to the online version of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And as mentioned, I did attend on the 8th of February, the Mayor Council's dinner. The mayors met in an executive meeting and are formulating an agenda for the rest of the year. And, we did talk about the library. We talked about mental health services provided throughout the county and the disparate availability that takes place in the different communities. On the 12th, the Chamber hosted Meet the Mayor. I saw some of you there, not everyone. And anyway, it was a lovely little event, and I think I saw Mark Bodenheimer here someplace. Thank you very much for hosting that and putting that together. And then this morning, there was a shared services, and this is a meeting with Susan Gorin, our district supervisor, Councilmember Lowe, myself, the city manager, and then some staff members of the from the county. At least I think that's where they're from, and Catalyst Fund. Anyway, and this is a group that's discussing the kinds of services that are being provided in the respective jurisdictions and where can we find some synergies and collaborate. And of course, one of the topics is the concept of annexation. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later probably as we talk about city goals. But I don't want to give away the surprises. So we'll move on. Nothing else to report. City manager comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few items to report out on. We have new trash cans that are going to be installed in the plaza. That's both trash, recycle, and compost bins will be on the plaza. We're a little delayed due to the weather, but we're on track to start the installation of the actual trash cans themselves tomorrow, and should be completed by Friday. So if you're out this weekend, you should see new trash cans on the plaza, so give them a shot and give them a try. Also, Sonoma Ecology Center is conducting prescribed pile burning operations in the Montini Preserve, and they started that today, so just want to make sure the public's aware of that. If you see little bits, puffs of smoke out in the preserve, there is prescribed burning going on. They'll continue periodically through April, and the trails will remain open, but some of them may be out of service at certain times, and there'll be signs based on when those are going to happen. There are some dates, February 21st and 22nd, March 12th, 13th, 19th, and 20th, and April 10th. So those are may move around based on other activities that are happening and the weather and how that moves. So just keep an eye on that, and it should be along the Spotted Fawn Trail. If you're up there walking, you know that trail. That's primarily where they're located. And then finally, if you saw on the news, just came across the news just as we were coming in today. Our local Sonoma native Ada Limon was named one of Time Magazine's 12 Women of the Year for 2024. So that's exciting, and so I'm sure we'll learn more, see more about her. So it's exciting to see, and that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Mr. City Attorney.
I have no report this evening.
All right, thank you. All right, and presentations. We have two proclamations to present tonight, and is Tom Cook here, and Leslie Carmichael, is she with you as well? or-
Dr. Carmichael, unfortunately, is ill tonight, so she won't be joining us.
All right.
But-
Well, thank you for being here.
Mr. Mayor and council people, I'd like to just thank you for your efforts in the proclamation. And before we get into you reading that, I just want to tell you, this is the 80th time this council has done this. If you go back into your historical records, Red Cross was first recommended by President Roosevelt in 1924, I believe it was, 80 years ago this year, this March, of recognizing us for our humanitarian efforts. And if nothing else is obvious what we do, it's the concern on what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on with our storms here, what happened in Maui. I'm not going to tell, I don't need to explain the mission and the purpose of what we do, but I can leave everyone with 3 thoughts regarding Red Cross, and that is, there's always a need for people to donate. There's always an extremely need for people to give blood, and like myself, a major need for people to volunteer. So, you know the mission, join us. There's 300,000 of us in America, all volunteers that are carrying our mission forward. So.
It's amazing because that's exactly what the proclamation says.
I must have wrote that.
In all seriousness, thank you for everything that you do. I'm not going to read through the proclamation because you've heard it 80 times probably. But the work that you do, and I think back to the 17 fires, and you had a presence in the Valley, you were providing services and support, and that's what you do. And I will second the need for volunteers and people to get involved. That's one of the great ways that somebody can get involved in the community and support their community. But as such, and just to be official, I'm going to, by the powers invested in me, it's my honor to proclaim March, what is National Red Cross Month in the city of Sonoma. All right. So anyway, having said that, let me present this to you.
Thank you very much.
If you go that way. If you guys go that way, like 2 steps, I can get the council all the way up behind you. There you go. Perfect. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and the second proclamation is a little on the tardy side, but we are distinguishing February 2024 as Black History Month. And the city of Sonoma takes pride in its diverse community, where cultures and traditions converge to shape our collective identity and presence as a community. And so for African Americans, since 1976, Black History Month was established. It underscores the significance of honoring and affirming the pivotal role of African Americans in shaping the American experience, including Sonoma. And it's a reminder for all Americans to reflect on as past successes and challenges of African Americans, inspiring us to work towards a future where we uphold the ideals of freedom, equality, and justice for all. And so I, John Gurney, as mayor of the city of Sonoma, along with the city council, do hereby declare February 2024 as Black History Month in the city of Sonoma, inviting all residents to join us in recognizing this month as an opportunity to celebrate the diversity and character of our community and to emphasize the importance of sharing our culture, customs, and traditions with one another. Let us unite in this special observance to honor the legacy and achievements of African Americans, fostering greater understanding, appreciation, and unity in the city. And under the official seal of the city of Sonoma, this day, the 21st of February, designating February 2024 as Black History Month. And there's nobody here to accept that, but thank you. Okay, now we move on to item number 7, consent calendar. And all items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by one single motion unless one of the council members would like to request specific items be removed for separate discussion. Is there a motion?
I move to accept the consent calendar.
Public comment?
Public comment. Public comment. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar? Thank you.
I remove. Once again.
I second. I second the motion to approve the consent calendar.
All right, roll call.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas,
Aye.
Councilmember Wellander,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Gurney.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, there are no public hearings this evening. We'll move to the regular calendar, and the first item on the regular calendar, item 9.1, resolution approving the temporary use of the Field of Dreams, Fazio Field, by Transcendence Theater Company for a summer event series June 17th through 24th, July 22nd through 29th, August 12th through 19th, and September 16th through 23 of 2024. The proposed resolution is exempt from CEQA, which is the California Environmental Act, under sections 15304, minor alterations to land, and et cetera, and I'm going to let Ms. Jensen share with us what this is all about.
Well, good evening, Mayor Gurney and City Council members. Tonight, Transcendence Theater Company is seeking approval of their temporary use of the Field of Dreams, specifically Fazio Field, for their summer event series. As most of you have probably read in the local newspaper, Transcendence Theater Company has been waiting on the results of an environmental impact report that have spanned over 2 years. They had hopes that they could return to their home at Jack London State Park. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case this year. The city has been working with Transcendence to try to find a temporary home for their 2024 event series, and most recently, Transcendence has been working with the Field of Dreams organization, and collaboratively, they have identified Fazio Field as a potential temporary home for their summer event series. I've included a map, as you can see. I wish I had a pointer. But Fazio Field sits just north of the police station parking lot, so right out here. Transcendence has submitted their parks use permit and all of the supporting documentation. It's attached to the staff report, naming Fazio Field as their desired location. The proposed dates are listed here on the slide. June 17th, 2024, or June 17th, through the 24th, July the 22nd through the 29th, August 12th through the 19th, and September 16th through the 23rd. Sorry. So what they're proposing, and what's outlined on this slide, is an 8-day schedule. This is kind of what they're envisioning. So it's looking at a load-in on a Monday, and then followed by 3 days or 3 afternoons of tech rehearsals or days of tech rehearsal. They're looking for approval on 4 performance nights. And as you can see, there's potential staff being on site during those days as well, Thursday through Sunday, and then a move out on the Monday, taking almost all of the day. So with that said, this schedule has been shared with the Field of Dreams, and they are looking to coordinate, understanding that this is what is the desired goal. I think it's also important to note here that the proposed schedule for amplified sound, we're staying within our noise ordinance and not making any special acceptance. But as you can see, that even during move-in and during the technical rehearsals, there will be amplified sound, as well as the performance days. And then it's also, I think, important to note that they are going to need the use of a generator. And the Special Events Committee will review that placement of that generator, the placement of the, and should I back up just a little bit? The Special Events Committee is comprised of our fire department, individuals from the fire department, the police department, our parks department, other departments of public works, and myself, and we sit down and we review all of the materials that have been provided to us. So it's just important to note that when we get ready to review the generator, we'll make sure that it's placed in an appropriate location to try to reduce that noise and the impact on the community. Oh. This slide covers the parking and transportation plan elements. Transcendence will need to provide to the city a plan that takes into consideration elements outlined on this slide. I'm not going to read through all of them. The city will request that this plan be submitted 90 days prior. It's pretty much the middle of March, so that gives us plenty of time to review it and make sure that we can get the public notices out. I think the key highlights to their parking plan is, one, coordination with the other venues in the area, namely, one, the Field of Dreams and all of the recreational users of Field of Dreams, two, the Sonoma Veterans Building, Arnold Field, and the Stompers, I think, is another one that is going to be impacted by this use. And so just really trying to mitigate the impacts, and just coordination and the collaboration between all entities is going to be really important to make sure that we can mitigate some of the parking and the traffic issues that might come about. With most of our large-scale events that span multiple days and have an impact on the community, we do require noticing. So we have requested that Transcendence work with Sonoma Valley Chamber of Commerce in all noticing to businesses affected by the events occurring on the field. We're also asking that they notify the residents. That includes possibly looking up at the residents that go up past the city limits up into Mission Highlands. I think it's going to be important that they're notified of what's transpiring. And then also ensuring that all notices have actual contact information of the individuals that'll be on site that can actually help to remedy situations as they arise. So the city will be working, the Special Events Committee will be working with Transcendence to ensure that all noticing is done in a public manner, and it's done well in advance so people can plan accordingly. This slide covers the environmental considerations and findings. I'm not going to reread them because Mayor Gurney touched on them earlier. Just to kind of summarize the next steps. So the next steps is really for the Special Events Committee to meet. If City Council's desire is to approve this use, then the Special Events Committee would meet. We'd review all the documentation. We would come up with the conditions listed that would be included with part of the provisional approval of the permit. The city manager would then have the ability to approve the permit provisionally based on those conditions, and then there'll be compliance milestones identified. Most of them hit at the 90-day, the big ones, trying to get the advance noticing out to the public, as well as it was the parking plan are the two big ones, and then minor ones that are triggered later on in the approval process. But all of those will be outlined and provided to the city manager, who will have the ability to approve it with your approval. And then the recommendation is really to adopt a resolution approving the use of the Field of Dreams, Fazio Field, for Transcendence Summer Event Series with conditions recommended by the Special Events Committee, and approving this use at the Field of Dreams. Transcendence Theater Company will rescind their provisionally approved plaza use permit, which was granted earlier this year. And I think that with that, I would like to wrap up. I'm here to answer questions. We also have a huge group from Transcendence that's here to answer questions, and I think there might also be someone from Field of Dreams here. So if I can't answer it, then you have a lot of other help.
All right, thank you. But before you step away from the podium, are there any questions of staff by the council? Ms. Lowe.
So how is this different or the same as when the Sonoma Jazz Festival, for example? I just want to get like a comparison from you.
So that is a great question. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't have a lot of those records. It all predates my my being hired, but it is very similar. The use will be very similar. The setup time is similar, and I think it really did set kind of a precedence for this type of use moving forward. So,
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dean.
My question regarding the garbage, do you have any special team to take care of the after event and the garbage, or do you hire any in the company to help us?
So all events on city-owned property they have to follow the special events policy. This would be considered or deemed a large-scale event, and it is occurring on city property. So the provisions it would require some sort of sorting of all trash, and that can be done in different ways. If they want to have volunteers do it, or if they want to hire a professional entity like a Green Mary to handle it. Very similar to what we do for the farmers market. I think it's also important to note, though, at this current moment, there's no proposal for food trucks, so it's a different type of trash, more contained trash as far as it'll be, beverages.
Do you have the separate for organic and compost?
Absolutely. We were one of the first cities inside Sonoma County to adopt.
That is my concern.
Yes. So we were one of the first cities, and a lot of the cities inside this county have adopted our similar policy. So yes, Councilmember Dean.
Because this is also in the summertime, in the temperature. Thank you so much.
All right, seeing no further questions of staff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have public comment. Is there anybody here who would like to speak to this?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I hadn't intended to speak on this item, but as a long time ago when I was on the Community Services and Environment Commission, when we did have the Jazz Fest and the Doobie Brothers at Field of Dreams, we negotiated with the people who put on that event to have some portion of the tickets be available for people who have low income in the community, so that it wasn't just a real high-end event. So I would suggest that some portion of these tickets be available like they were in the past at the Jazz Fest and for the Gypsy Kings, the Doobie Brothers. There were some tickets available for people at low income, so I don't know how you would do that, but that's what was done in the past, apropos of what Councilmember Lowe asked of the Jazz Fest. Thanks.
Hi, Tom Conlon here. I wasn't intending to speak on this item tonight, but it occurs to me that I haven't, in the presentation, I had a couple of questions that come to mind answered, and so I thought I'd ask them now. I didn't hear any number of people who are likely to be attending this event over these many days, as I understand it, and because of that, I'm a little confused as to this city's comment that there's no CEQA impacts, because obviously if it's a large event, there's lots of trips involved, there's greenhouse gas emissions associated therewith. So I just feel that to be consistent, I should ask that question, and I look forward to hearing some answer about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a couple comments. My name's Rod Crisp. I'm a resident here of Sonoma. We bought our home here about 8 years ago. Actually moved here about 6 years ago. Been a Transcendence supporter for 7 of those years, a donor as well as attendee. Transcendence and the Jack London Field of Dreams thing was one of the reasons we decided to move to Sonoma. We love the organization, and we are happy that they are have found a temporary home. One of our concerns was that some other city might woo this organization away and we'd lose them. Okay, and that has been a bit of a concern. So I'm glad and I'm kind of happy that the city has stepped in and done this. Now, also as a board member of Sonoma Arts Live, okay, the only live performance theater company in Sonoma. We've been going somewhat strong since 2010. We rent the Andrews Hall at the community center, as many of you know. We pay $5,700 a month rent to rent that hall. We absolutely support the Field of Dreams. We support this whole program. What concerns us a bit is, had we been notified, the only other live performing entity been notified, we would have solved conflicts for 2 of our events, 2 of our shows this year. And Transcendence and us, we could have easily worked together to work those through. We're not faulting Transcendence at all. They didn't know. I mean, they're trying to solve their own problems, but this should have been handled different. We should have been notified. Everybody could have been happy. We support the arts. My God, we don't want to do anything to hurt Transcendence. They're performing arts. We're performing arts. We want to help one another. But had we been informed, had this been a different process to where we could have been informed, it would have been better for everybody. So we're going to take the hit. It's a huge financial hit to us. 1/3 of our income for our summer shows will be impacted. But we'll take it and we'll survive, just like Transcendence is taking their hit and they're surviving. But it should have been done different. So I'm imploring the City Council, whatever system you're using through this special events, let's change it a little bit. Let's involve and make sure that you don't just check with the Chamber of Commerce to make sure that our restaurants are happy with what we're doing, or the hotels. Make sure you also involve the arts, the other people that are associated with the events you're putting on, to make sure we can work in harmony with those organizations. We need to think bigger than that, than the way we're thinking right now. The other thing I want to bring up that is a bit concerning for me is I'd like to see something better happening as to how we go about defining what the uses are for these events, for these public spaces. Okay? We shouldn't have to get exemptions for things if that is in fact the intended use. It puts a burden on everybody. And I'm talking about all the spaces here. So I know time's up, but I'm saying I think that we should form some kind of committee. We should be looking at that process. We shouldn't need exemptions for things that we want to do. If it's the purpose of something, it should be in the regulation, not an exemption. That's an opening to lawsuits. Thank you. Anyway, we do support the event.
Thank you. Anybody else wanting to comment on this? Anybody from Transcendent? Or go ahead.
John Toolsy, the Girl of the Fig. I just want to say a couple things. First off, we support this. We think it's a good use of that location, and certainly support Transcendence and hope that they continue their success. And I don't want to speak for other restaurant tours, but I know that I've spoken with a lot of restaurateurs, and we're pleased with this location, and just want to offer our support to it and to Transcendence as well. That's all I have.
Thank you. A familiar face, Mr. Lynch.
Yes, I'm Bill Lynch, Sonoma resident, and I'm also your honorary Caldi for 2023, and as a lifelong resident of Sonoma, and one of the founders of the Field of Dreams, and its first president of the Field of Dreams board. I want you to know I fully endorse this proposal for the use of the field for this year's Transcendence Theaters. There's many reasons, and they're all good reasons. And it is, I agree with the previous speakers that said there should be a process by which all of these different arts groups could coordinate their activities in a better manner. Because in my former life as an editor of a paper, that was often a problem of trying to find out who gets what priority to what thing, and even on our front page. But that said, this year also marks the 30th anniversary of the Field of Dreams. April 1994 was when it was opened. And so it's a good year to have something special going on down there. And I think this is a very special thing. And I heartily approve that you ask that you approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alcalde. Anybody else?
Hello, Council. I am Brad Sorosky. I'm the Executive Director of Transcendence. That's Surosky. I was told I need to spell my last name. We're very excited and honored to be here, and we are excited to work with the community, to work with the council, to work with all of the businesses, and with the Field of Dreams and their nonprofit to perform our shows right here in this beautiful field. We're looking forward to hopefully inspiring many people and furthering our mission with arts education. This has been a hard time for Transcendence, with not being, with all the challenges of not being able to be in the park, and to have the city come in at this point and help us to really further our shows and further our mission here is amazing. And as you can see, we have a lot of great support. Raise your hand if you're here to support Transcendence. So there we go. And it's because we're genuine. What we want to do here is real. We want to do it for the community. We want to support the community. And let me tell you, these shows that we're looking to do here are not the exact same things that people are used to coming at Jack London State Park. We're not looking at having food trucks. We're looking at really partnering with all of the businesses and making this an experience, a City of Sonoma experience that people from all over the country can come to, our community can be proud of. So I ask that you all vote. Please vote yes to have us here. We will do you proud. Thank you.
JJ Abedili, Sonoma resident as well, and a member of the Field of Dreams board. Happy to answer any questions if any folks have it on the impact of Field of Dreams, but we are very happy to have Transcendence. Thank you to our previous visionary founder, where'd he go, of Field of Dreams. And Field of Dreams is in need of a new vision. It's a place that's got a lot of deferred maintenance. It's got playing fields that need constant improvements for kids as well as the community at large that use it. And I'm really excited to have great new groups of people coming to see the Field of Dreams and use the Field of Dreams. And we're working actively with the great folks at Transcendence to accommodate them amongst our other user groups. And so we're pleased to have them and hope you guys approve the permit. So thank you. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, what is the expectation on the part of both you and Transcendence as far as addressing the wear and tear on the field at the end of the Transcendence season?
Yeah, great question. So, as you might imagine, the impact on fields is really seasonal in terms of usage and then maintenance and how we kind of deal with things. So given the sort of week on, 3 week off schedule throughout the summer, there's going to be sort of an interim maintenance that we'll need to do to make, and it's just Fazio Field, reusable for predominantly very young softball players that use that field. The other fields are more dominated by baseball and soccer. Fortunately, the proper summer is actually a slower season for us relative to fall and spring. And then following the September usage, we're always doing kind of end of season and preseason rework on the infields, et cetera. But we will be doing things on a special cases like marking sprinkler heads, making sure that we identify, where they're going to be loading in and out and the impact that will have. And we'll have an agreement to do any necessary replacements or fixing of those things that are impacted by the use.
So the expectations are coordinated between two parties?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
All right. Thank you, JJ.
Thanks, Sean.
In just one moment, because there are some questions I think you'll want to answer as well. Anybody else in general want to speak? Then Brad, come on up.
Thanks.
Go ahead with what you wanted to
Oh,
say,
yeah,
and
I
then
just-
I've got some questions for you.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is we're very excited for our partnership with the Field of Dreams, and a portion of each ticket, just like we do at Jack London, will be going to the Field of Dreams nonprofit to help with sports recreation and keeping those fields safe for all the kids, and we're excited about that. And also, somebody asked the question about having people what was it, lower economic income means, thank you, to our shows. And that is part of our mission, and part of what we're going to be looking at is how we can do that at all of the shows for the community. It is something we do. We also give away many tickets and partner with nonprofits to bring kids, especially youth, to the shows that normally might not be able to attend. So I just wanted to make that clear, that is a big thing and very important to us.
Somebody asked about the number of attendees. What is your seating capacity?
Our seating is about 700 to 800, just like we have it at all the other venues that we did last summer and at the park.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of Brad while he's here?
Well, I don't know if this is for Brad, but I do think we want to answer the CEQA VMT question. Maybe that Lisa could answer that, or
The
David.
CEQA issue, there are a couple exemptions that staff has cited for which there's substantial evidence. Essentially, there are exemptions for things like carnivals, where there's a temporary use of land that is not going to permanently impact it. There's also exemptions for public gatherings, where that is a normal operation of the the location. So in this case, the Field of Dreams. And so that's looking at the fact is that the baseline essentially is going to be the same. So as it's used with sports tournaments, so it will be used with, the transcendence. So in those cases, the legislature has said these are exempt from further CEQA review.
can I comment now? Sure. So maybe we could do something in regards to publicity and marketing that encourages people to carpool, and bring those issues forward so that people understand that we are actively looking at reducing vehicle miles traveled, and it still is an event, but we want to start changing people's behaviors. So
yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions for Brad? No. All right. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Seeing no other public comment, we'll bring it back to the council. Ms. Lowe.
So I want to thank everybody that's here tonight, and people who aren't here tonight may be watching, who participated in the negotiations that got us to this point. I think we learned a good lesson, and that is that whether we have a process or not, people are going to be involved in Sonoma, right? And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. And personally, I welcome it because the product will always be better with the more people helping and thinking and negotiating and so forth. But that being said, I think a lot of people feel like, well, we've just never done this before. We opened the playbook and we followed it. Nobody, intended to do something, out of line. But I think we've learned that, when we have something that is going to take up this many weekends, that we could probably come up with a process that wouldn't have to be made up on the fly, that would be sort of institutionalized going forward. And I don't know what that is, but I think that, we heard some comments tonight that sort of spoke to that. This would, allow people to look at their schedules, maybe move some things around. And I think that's a good thing. But everybody came with good intentions. Every letter I got was in a positive way, wanting to make something work. and bringing up issues that I never heard of before. I mean, because I just heard of it and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be great. Everyone's going to love it. And then it's like, and then I was so surprised when not everyone loved it the way I thought they would. So I learned a lot about that. But I came in it from a positive perspective, and I think everybody else did too. I sent a quick note over to Mark Bodenhamer saying, like, we have to figure out a way where if events that we hold at the plaza are not helping businesses, then we got to figure out how to make them help businesses. Because, and that's not just restaurants, that's theater businesses, that's stores. I saw Dan Araldi in the back. You know, because I see other places, you know, that place over there, you know, the 4-letter word, Napa, that they put on things and their businesses are going like, oh, we love it, you know, the light show and people at restaurants are booked up. And so I'm thinking this is what's going to happen here because I'm thinking positively, right? So if it's not, we got to figure out how can we make it be helpful. And so there's sort of two things going on in my mind. One is to make whatever process we have work better so people feel included, because that's the right thing to do from the get-go. And also, how do we make it work so that people look forward to events that are held in town because they know it's also going to be helpful to the things that they do, you know, all the time. And so I just needed to say that because it was a lesson for me, you know, going through this process. And I just really appreciate everyone, their willingness to vent, their willingness to email, their willingness to call, to meet, but most of all, willingness to be flexible and come up with a different solution when the first one was not the right one. And I will support this, but I want to go forward and make things better for the future. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, and well said from my perspective. Mr. Ding, anything?
All right. Thank you, Mayor Gurney. Thank you, everyone. Today we got together, actually, and we celebrate today. And I still remember 12 or 13 years ago when you're the former co-founder, Stephen Stubbing. Yeah, so he was working so hard. Right now, I just asked Amy, right now he's in the East Coast. He knocked on the door, see to anybody, whatever is local resident or visitors. Oh, we have the show, this is the flyers. And put an advertisement on the newspaper, and always try to find a segment for the radio and the shows. Yeah, that is, I cannot imagine. At that time, I was a little bit hesitated. I said, wow, why spend so much, how much money you can support? At that time, money is zero. They borrow the money. But right now, congratulations. You already become $1 million business. What is more? You bring in the people spiritual foods and also give out in the city additional value. That is what we are expecting, what we are looking for. We are so proud to be Sonoma's resident, but never forget we had a lot of the good assets already built up by the former settlers, people before us. But every day, single day, we remember we are shaping the future of the Sonoma. We want to add additional value for this city. Thank you again.
Yeah, I just want to thank Councilmember Lowe and Ding just for all of their comments and agree with those comments as well. One of the things that I would like to see as well, of course, is, clearly understanding what's the best process for things when they are potentially this large and have such an impact on the community, and especially in the center of our community where many people have to drive through and come here to work and come here to eat. But so what I'd really hope is in after the events and during them that we're actually collecting really good data so that we understand what the real impact is to the businesses on the plaza, so that next time something comes up, we know what we're working with and what issues we need to work around. The other thing I wanted to really thank Councilmember Lowe was very good in thanking everybody for their flexibility. I wanted to add on one thing. I know an enormous amount of time went into this from many, many people, and just want to thank everybody for their time. And I know working on weekends and having discussions on weekends, and just really appreciate not just staff, but everybody in the community, of course, that participated in that as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wellander.
Yes, I am excited and I'm supporting this proposal before us. What I am reminded, though, is that our community is pretty special in the sense that when challenges come up, we are able to kind of rally around. I can remember back during COVID, and we were trying to figure out how do we bring some life or breath into our restaurants, and we worked hard to create some parklets and push some rules and regulations, and again, that was a reflection of a community that wants to help. And this is another case where Transcendence needed some help, and we were willing to rally together and be creative and come up with a solution that will hopefully we'll look back and smile and say this was good, and this is what makes Sonoma special, the willingness to come together when we need help. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And, I would just like to say it's been a kind of a long path to get through, and it certainly was not a straight path. And the one thing that I learned from all of this is that we do need to have processes that bring the community conversation into the thought process very early. And as such, it's my hope, and we've already had some discussions, that we'll be looking at the permitting process for events. And we want to make sure that there's sufficient time to have public input, and to make sure that the community, whether it's the business community or residents, that they can participate as much as they want. And tonight actually is kind of a step in that direction, because we've put this on the agenda, and we have the opportunity to really talk about it. And we've had all sides here. We've heard good, bad, and the hopeful. And I too am hopeful that this turns out to be a very positive experience. The beauty is that we can evaluate these events at each particular performance. And so I look forward to seeing how this works out. And my hope is that it will be good for the community, it will be good for the residents, it will be good for the city. And I've always kind of looked at things from an economic development perspective, and that was kind of a motivating factor in first approaching Transcendence, knowing that they could add value to the community, and so I am really hoping to see some great success for Transcendence and for everybody else as well. So Field of Dreams, and how appropriate, because they come from a Field of Dreams. It's just a different one to a new Field of Dreams. So thank you to everybody that worked hard, and I will have to say that the city manager and city staff, phenomenal work to make this come together. And I think you can tell that I will probably support this as well, but we will conclude comments and call for a vote.
I move approval of the resolution approving the use of the Field of Dreams, Fazio Field, for Transcendence Summer Event Series with the conditions recommended by the Special Events Committee.
I second.
Ms. Barr.
Councilmember Lowe.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas.
Aye.
Councilmember Wellander.
Yes.
Councilmember Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Gurney.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Are we supposed to bow now? All right. Thank you very much. And if you want to leave, now's a good time. We have another item on the agenda that we're going to go ahead and proceed with. I love that little bell. Are you? Do you need breaky proof? Okay. Okay. You good? No. Okay.
We finished early.
We just took an informal vote. Nobody needs to take a break. All right. So the next item is item 9.2, resolution ratifying 2024 City Council goals. Mr. Guen.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. For those that we might want to.
We'll show them out first.
Okay.
I think the term is we're being upstaged.
No pun intended.
Okay.
Well done. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So tonight we're going to go over the 2024 Sonoma City Council goals that were discussed on February 2nd in a workshop held at the Lodge. At that meeting, we left with 5 goals that we talked about to bring forward tonight. And the goal tonight is to ratify those goals, provide some discussion. I'll go over what I heard from the City Council during those meetings. If there's any input, modifications, or other adjustments, you can provide that. And then once you are comfortable with the goals set out tonight, you'll ratify that. And again, as a reminder, these goals will be the blueprint for the next year for me for identifying and aligning staff resources. It'll be used in developing the budget coming up in July, and even the mid-year budget coming up in April. And we'll also be working with all of our boards and commissions to make sure we're aligned with how we're moving forward to achieve these goals that you set forth. The first goal that came up was housing. It's essentially, the City Council has reconfirmed its commitment to addressing housing needs at all levels, and this is low income, missing middle, workforce housing, market rate housing, all included in trying to find creative ways to get units built within the City of Sonoma limits. Part of that is to look at our process. A lot of what we can control is what we do internally in terms of our process, which means how we move permits through the system, how efficient we are, streamlining our processes, looking at our fee structures, and also looking for incentives that we can put in place to encourage a certain type of product that we want to see, specifically low-income housing that needs incentives to actually become a reality. There's a lot of things that we can't control, the market, the cost of labor and materials, but what we can do is try to reduce the time for processing, increase certainty in the process, and address the cost of our process. And that really does make an impact to developers as they're looking at developing homes, specifically low-income housing and missing middle market rate workforce housing. The other thing we want to do is take a proactive approach in looking at creative funding sources. So as mentioned by Councilmember Farrar-Rivas, there is a potential ballot measure in November, the BAFA measure that will be out there. And so one of the things that we're doing is meeting with the county now and all the other cities to position ourselves to make sure that we're ready for that. If that does pass, that we're ready to hit the ground running, that we have our policies in line, we have identified potential projects, and we're not waiting and caught flat-footed if that passes. So there's a lot of things we can do now to prepare ourselves and a lot more we can do to find creative funding out there to support this initiative. The second goal that was talked about was economic development, revenue stewardship. Obviously, the budget is a key piece of what keeps us running as an operation. So committing, part of that is our supporting our businesses. That was talked about in the previous item, but being committed to our economic vitality through business-friendly environment. So that's all the way from how we interact with businesses that are thinking about locating in Sonoma, helping them through that process. A lot of times if you're opening a small business, that's your focus, that's your passion, that's what you want to do, but understanding the government process and permitting process and the health department process and the fire codes, it's really not top of the list. So that's something that we need to step up with and provide that service and support to make sure that people don't feel left out alone, or better yet, get to the end and find out there's a lot that has to get done. We also want to attract and retain a diversified business aligned with our economic goals. That was brought up specifically around the diversification of businesses within Sonoma. And then looking at from a budget standpoint, implementing revenue enhancement strategies. So looking at different financial resources, how we're investing, looking at our small business resiliency, and then other potential revenue measures out there that we can talk about. The third was Park and Recreation Community Services. As I've talked about quite a bit, is the city does not have a Parks and Rec department. We do have an expectation of how we, a level of service that we provide to our community with regards to parks and recreation, from the standpoint of how our parks are maintained, the assets we have in each community and the neighborhoods. The plaza is a key, obviously, piece of that system. Depot Park and Field of Dreams, as you just heard earlier, another key asset to the city in terms of how we maintain. In addition, recreation services are something that we rely on our nonprofits to help support us with. The Boys and Girls Club, Vintage House, all the way from children all the way up through maturity of adults, programs and services that we support financially. And so making sure that we have a process in place to maintain those contracts, support those nonprofits to deliver the services that the City Council and the community expects. In addition, the cemeteries are an asset that the city has that need to be maintained and supported through, that would fall within this jurisdiction as well, including the arts programs and other services to our community. So to do this, it does take a resource. It takes a resource to develop that core structure of staff to help manage that and oversee that and connect the dots and bring everything together. And also a revenue source to address infrastructure improvements on these various resources, the plaza and others. So, and also additional funding that could be used to enhance our nonprofit partners for recreation programs and enhancing those programs. One key partner that we've been talking about are the school districts. There's a lot of assets and fields and that the school district has that we can partner with. And again, part of this would be to incorporate that and work with the school districts to leverage those assets for the community's use as well as the school use. So that kind of leads to the last one is prioritizing that community collaboration. We can't do this alone. I mean, it is working with our nonprofit partners, the school districts and others to support our arts programs, cemetery preservations, the plaza planning, conservation of easements that was brought up during the discussion with council to maintain to have a well-maintained community. The fourth item that was discussed was climate mitigation and adaptation. Essentially positioning Sonoma as a climate action leader. We do have a very active climate commission that has done a lot of work over the past few months in developing climate strategies. Those strategies were brought forth to the council and approved by the city council. And so part of this goal would be to look at those strategies and work towards implementing those strategies. And this is a great example of how this goal would influence the budget. As we go through the budget process, we'll be looking at those strategies, identifying what's needed to actually implement some of those strategies, and ensure there's a revenue source and a budget to actually see some production and results. So some of those potential initiatives include public transportation, trees, capital trees, and we have capital trees for a reason, because there's so many elements to the trees with regards to from street trees to supporting our neighborhoods in terms of homeowners and putting in new trees to urban forest and carbon sequestration. There's a lot of issues with trees that we have to deal with. Enough so that next week, I believe it's next week, we are having a 3 commission meeting to talk about trees as the sole option. So we'll have the Climate Commission, the PROS, which is the Park and Open Space Recreation. Thank you. Planning, and the Planning. I'm sorry. Planning Commission. I'm sorry. We'll be there too. So Planning Commission, PROS, and the Climate Commission will be there to talk about trees, because everybody has a part in that, and it touches so many different things that we do. So setting this as a goal is a key thing moving forward. And finally, discussion was around the viability and potential of annexation unification. And this was really to explore the options of what that looks like of annexation. As the mayor mentioned early on, there has been conversations ongoing about shared services, how we can work together with the valley to share what we're doing. For example, homeless services. We currently do that across the valley, working with the county, funding caseworkers and helping fund some of our nonprofits that are in the valley. But we can expand on that in various ways. This process would formalize in terms of giving me direction to come back to the council potentially with a work plan on what we would do this next year to get more information to help council evaluate this. Is this a potential or not? Is there interest in doing this or not? So essentially initiating that community input and engagement process, talking to LAFCO about their needs in terms of what they would need to do an evaluation from a financial standpoint. But all along looking at being as transparent as possible, getting the community engaged in this, and making sure that the council has sufficient information to decide how to move forward on this issue. And so that was the final goal. So those were the 5 goals that came out. I'll leave this up on the screen for you just to have as a cheat sheet as we go through the conversation. I do have one additional slide. We obviously, if anybody's watching or people in the audience, we do have a lot of information on our website. Please sign up for our newsletter so you can see progress on these goals. And we also have a dedicated web page for the city council goals currently up now. It is provisional based on council's action tonight. Once council acts, we will finalize that page and make sure that everyone's aware that those are the goals that we're working on. So with that, I'll turn it back to the mayor for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Anyway, were there any questions for Mr. Ewan at this point? All right. So now we.
I have one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
You knew I would. So so I know we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I came out of that meeting with the assumption that these were not in priority order. So just want to be clear that that's the case, so people don't go in and say, oh, this is not, unless we all feel that we did prioritize them. I didn't feel that happened. So
That is correct. I am not showing any priority on this. I numbered them just for how they were on my list, but council can give direction on that. But at this point, they're all a priority to me as a way to implement. That's my direction moving forward.
thank you.
All right, nothing further from the council, so we'll open it up for public comment.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor and Council. I find the words being used to describe the annexation of the Springs interesting. One phrase I read in the Index Tribune, and I just saw it on the board, referred to this issue of unification. Unity is a warm, friendly idea, but annexation is not really about unity. It's about power. Who has it, where it's located, who wants it, and how to get it. I understand that Springs residents feel unempowered. The County of Sonoma admits the residents and their infrastructure have been poorly served for many decades. I'm sympathetic, and 10 years ago I advocated that the Springs should incorporate as its own city with its own city council, administration, and power over its own future. It doesn't take a LAFCO analysis to know that the city of Sonoma barely has its head above water. We still need to fully solve $1 million budget deficit. We're years behind in audits. We have 4 primary administrative positions unfilled. We hear complaints by staff about feeling overworked and underpaid. Pay exorbitant rates to temp agencies to fill essential positions, and have yet to implement a newly adopted housing element and complete our new general plan, which isn't even included in the goals that you just went over. City Manager Gurney is laboring to bring our basic operations up to snuff. That the city of Sonoma is in a financial position to bail out the Springs is a pipe dream. I think it's also a pipe dream that the Springs could be the financial savior of the city. Tax revenue from one major hotel and an assortment of small stores, restaurants, and auto repair shops will not bail out the city of Sonoma. If annexed, added payroll costs for administration, police, and public works will be many millions. As for representation, some residents will always be on the other side of any border drawn. Ironically, it looks as if the Springs is going to get its own first district supervisor who actually lives and comes from the Springs. I can't think of a better opportunity for Springs residents to be heard. I'm a student of the smallest beautiful school of city planning and skeptical about the benefits of annexation. Sure, small cities have problems, but it follows bigger cities have bigger problems. Just over 3 years ago, 80% of Sonoma's voters made our voices loud and clear. We don't want a major expansion of the city and its urban growth boundary. That vote should not be ignored. You and the city staff have plenty to do and to solve. And isn't the world a little bit crazy enough right now without adding more to the list? Is this really the time to add more to the shoulders of your new city manager? I think we need to get our own town's affairs in order before taking on something as big as this. With all what's going on, I feel like we're living not in the United States of America, but it's turned into the emotional states of America. I don't want to see us add to the hue and cry and the difficulties that everybody's already feeling. Thank you.
Mr. Dimler.
Robert Dimler, First Street West. I couldn't go a meeting without saying something, and I want to congratulate you on how far you've come in the last 2 weeks in solving what I thought was a challenge. I normally do not agree with Larry Barnett, but tonight I want to make it public statement that I do, and his eloquence cannot be surpassed. I agree with every word he said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the council. Again, Fred Allebach on 8th Street East, and I would encourage you to ratify the 5 goals as have been brought to the council tonight. The earlier proclamation to celebrate Black History Month with no black people at all to accept the proclamation, I think, speaks just tons of words, and an annexation process would be a step towards doing the right thing to make sure that maybe there was some person of color, a black person, who could accept that proclamation in the city of Sonoma. I think that, you know, this is a process, and this is a step now that I would ask you to not veto the study up front, but allow the study to go forward. And I don't want to talk about all the end game possibilities now, but it's hard to not talk about this without providing some kind of justification for why you would want to do it. So I think that right is right and wrong is wrong. And if you look at Sonoma Valley and you look at the proposed Sonoma Mountain Community Services District, which goes down Arnold Drive and divides the tax credit highest opportunity area there with Sonoma here, if the annexation ultimately fails, basically the wealthy in Sonoma have hung the poorest people out to dry, the ones who come and work in their yards and clean their houses. So right is right and wrong is wrong. So if you want to get a good reason why to even look at it, I think it's right there. Money is a proxy argument for a reason to say no. That's what they said in East Germany. It's going to cost too much. If it always costs too much to do the right thing, that's not a decent moral argument, I don't think. So I'd ask you to not veto this up front and study it. And let me go through my list here. And also, I can mention that the 2020 UGB vote was not about annexation, so that was not a rejection of annexation. This is not sprawl into green fields. This would be expanding the UGB over an already urbanized area, so there is none of the reasons that were for the UGB then would apply now. And the people who ran the UGB election said, well, we can always have a vote and change it if the people would like to. So that's an opportunity to do that. So I would just encourage you to go ahead and approve this package. It's a nice package, and I'd have a lot of things to say about the other things, but those are my messages. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to really think through a lot of these goals and everything that you want to achieve over the next year. It's really important and it's a long process, so I appreciate you guys putting the time in. And to Council Member Farrar-Rivas' point, I hope you'll humor me as I assume and cling to the belief that housing is at the top of the list because it is your number one priority. And we do thank you for that. I couldn't help as I'm listening to all the comments today, even going back to, Transcendence presentation, we cannot have the arts without housing. We cannot be climate leaders without housing. We cannot achieve really anything without housing. It is the cornerstone of every community, and having more and more diverse and more affordable housing it's the truth. It's what we have to do. And that means building denser, that means building a little bit taller, and it might make people uncomfortable, but this is what we have to do to maintain our urban growth boundaries, maintain our open space, which we all love and we vote time and time again to safeguard. So I would just leave you with this. It's very important, it's paramount importance actually, that objectivity and flexibility are the name of the game, and incentives are the name of the game as we move forward into this new year. Because the BAFA bond is on the horizon, and with it, a substantial amount of money that can really help get this ship sailing at full speed again. So with that, thank you again for all the time and effort you put into this. I really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing what we're going to do in 2024.
Thank you.
Mayor Gurney, council members. Thanks for the opportunity. I did not myself get to attend your goals meeting, so I'm glad, actually quite gratified to see this list of goals that you have put together to date. And especially to see housing, annexation, and climate action and mitigation so high on your, not ranked, but high on your list. So I support this list of goals. Regarding goal number 4, I serve on your Climate Action Commission, and I want to point out that while we do have a long and detailed climate mitigation plan, set of strategies, we haven't really spent much time on adaptation yet, and we're aware of that at our commission, but it's not before you at this goal setting process right now. And my news feed, my science feed and policy document feed that I'm getting tells us that we are really close, if not already at 1.5 degrees Celsius, the tipping point that our scientists and global policymakers tell us, really we'll start to have impacts. We'll start to have impacts on economic development if we don't address our climate issues. So I'm glad to see that we finally have the momentum here to start working on this here in the city of Sonoma. I want to bring in something forward. Had the opportunity to speak with Michael Boswell, professor at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, who's been studying climate action plans in more than half of the communities in California. That's over 240 plans, and has grad students down there cataloging these things. He has 5 recommendations for local communities. First is to join a community choice aggregation district. Fortunately, we have done that early and are very proud of that here in Sonoma County. Second, he says, pass a new construction all-electric REACH code. We are going into the Title 24 code update cycle. We're going to be supporting city staff in hopefully bringing forward a streamlined REACH code proposal for you later this year. There are 2 things that he says allocate money for. Existing building decarbonization, in particular single-family residential, and that includes education and incentives for people who can't afford to improve their homes. And then in transportation, to work on bicycle, pedestrian, transit, and electric vehicle infrastructure. These are all things that are identified in our strategies document, but I bring it to your attention tonight because we're going to need money to fund those things locally. And then finally, he says, build collaborative partnerships to get things done. Those are the 5 things he emphasizes. He says, show me a city's budget and I'll tell you what it values. So as we go into the budget setting process with now I think, a lot more recognition that these issues are important. I look forward to the business community coming to the table and really engaging with us to plan how we're going to address climate action in the city of Sonoma without interfering with our economic development goals, which obviously are critically important as well. So thank you for your consideration of my comments tonight.
Thank you. And
I'll be the last one. I don't have anything prepared, so I'm going off the cuff. So I think I would agree with the previous three speakers. I would agree that these are important goals that address critical issues in the city. I would like to encourage, I think what I would like to encourage is a perspective on equity that I see missing from these goals as stated, and I wasn't part of the planning process. But every aspect of these goals is going to have a racial impact, whether it's planned or unplanned. That happens throughout every policy. Every policy has a racial impact because that's the nature of our stratified society and systems. I would encourage using a racial equity lens in the implementation and development of these programs and plans, as well as in your budget priority setting processes. I also want to mention and just name out loud the racialized nature of the annexation or decision to unify or not unify the Springs district. It is broadly understood that this is a racialized area. These are the people who work really hard in this town and love this town, but have been made separate in this town. And that's a policy choice too. And so I really encourage us to name that, lean into that and repair that, and purposefully create more equity throughout the implementation of this process. Also, side note, all of that is possible in California, even with Prop 209. We can do this because there's no confines to planning for equity and implementing it. We can do more.
thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. All right. Councilmember Lowe, please.
I think we worked well to create these goals. I support all of them. I think that we may get to the result that annexation is not possible at this time, doesn't help us, doesn't help our budget. But I think taking it off the list sends a very bad message. And that is that we're not willing to look at being inclusive in terms of what this town is. And it doesn't mean that we have to, I know that there's no ranking of these things, although I tend to agree housing should be number one. But I think it is a statement to the people who go to school in our community, that work in our community, that are on our committees and commissions. I mean, the line goes right down Verano Avenue. And people on one side of the street are in the city and people on the other side of the street are not. And it's just so arbitrary. I go back to something I've said in many venues, and that is, if there were no city of Sonoma right now, if we were all in the county and they were going to create a city, what they would draw is not what we have under any circumstance. And I think you have to think about that, because it's really up to us to say what should be. Now, I don't want us to end up spending so much time only to reject it, but I think it needs to stay on the list. And there should be some ongoing fact finding, frequently asked questions that came up on the meeting we had this morning, John, because there's a lot of mythology about it. I mean, people have told me everything from the city's going to come in and measure the height of my bushes to, I need to put a sidewalk, or, all these, or I can't keep my chickens, or I only can have my chicken. I don't know, all of these things. But we need to keep it on the list. And at some point, and maybe it's small steps, just investigate what it's all about, what it entails, to be open to the community in terms of what it is and what it isn't. And at the end of the day, the whole community may say, you know what, thank you so much, but, it works how it is. And that's fine. But I think taking it off the list is a very bad message to send to the people in our community that work so hard and feel like they're just as much of 95476 as I am. And I think they deserve us to at least have them on the list. But I agree, housing should be number one. Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm big on transparency and intersectionality, both of those things. So while when I brought up the comment about ranking and what's number one, number five, is I just wanted to be clear that we hadn't done that. So whatever ends up how it is. But I would say for me, being an intersectionalist, is housing equity, which ended up as one of our values, that doesn't show up in this because which I've done, the work I've done around equity over the years, is it's better for it to be a lens across everything than it to be an item of its own that becomes separate and compartmentalized, but that it runs through everything that we do. And then, of course, in regards to the issue of, annexation, unification, the devil is in the details. One of the things that I find to be, I want to be sure is what we're looking at as in this exploration is, are we clear on what we're trying to solve? What are the issues that exist that we want to make better? So I think, it's helpful. We want to keep it in there. I think we want to be clear with people what we agreed upon was this is an exploration. And so that when we communicate about it, that people don't assume that it's a done deal. So that would be my only comment about kind of the wording around it. And then in the housing element, I was under the understanding that we had included kind of the full range of housing needs, so include unhoused within that description, so that wording should be back in there. And then around economic development, just a few comments of, Mark Bodenheimer isn't here already, but our Chamber of Commerce, why, being able to offer trainings on how to start a business in Sonoma, what you need to do that, looking at is the potential to create incubators so that we can invite new businesses to come to Sonoma and try a business here without the expense of starting a new business. How do we really engage, the chamber to really be an advocate for bringing business here and helping people come and build businesses here. Then also around budgeting, for me, the prioritization is crucial because of budgeting. Not the prioritization, the list because of budgeting. And one of the things I want us to be is very thoughtful as we go into budgeting is that we are looking at where are we putting money in ways that we know that those efforts by the city putting money towards an initiative allows us to go after state and federal grants. And so that we're really conscious of how we're budgeting, so that we're budgeting to leverage our budgeting dollars to get more money brought into the city. And then the last thing on prioritization is I have always set annual priorities on things that weren't happening and needed to have focus on. So, for example, I believe the reason the general plan isn't up there is because that is already in motion and exists and is already, staff is already working on it. So I always look at the prioritization as like, what are the things that we need to fix so we're going on the road right? So that's, I believe that's all my comments. There we go. I really like this list too, by the way.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Dean?
Thank you, Mayor Gurney. Thank you, David, for summarizing everything. I think you're going to cover everything. Controversy in the thing that is the annex and unification. My understanding is this is for our in the future, the discussion, because that is really, really related. A lot of the equity issue and the social issue, and just leave over there, let the people discuss. And we are going to have the budget meeting very soon, 3 months or 4 months. At that time, and we can thinking really what kind of amount is reasonable for this study, and because we know our the money is very valuable and still is running, and in the deficit, we should make full use of each dollar, but never forget, and we have our future vision. Yeah, so it will take long. It will take 5 years and 10 years and even longer. Today also I'm a little bit personal, emotional, when we little bit hypocritic, when we proclaimed this month as the Black Month, nobody take over. That is the and also reminded me last year, Mayor Lowe offered me the mayor on the May and the month, that is AAPI the month. Also, nobody take care. Right now, still on my desk. We really needed to do something. Yeah, that is my understanding. And the rest of them, because we lived here, a group of the people, different in the background, different races. Even some people went, even that right now, the numbers not showing on the paper because they are undocumented, but they lived here. Maybe you're the babysitter, maybe you're the gardener. Yeah, I think they suppose, get in the service they deserve. And also not only right now, also in the previous, in the past, the Chinese laborers, also they made contributions. We need to honor them, and it doesn't mean we needed to do something and ask something from them. Just to tell our young generation, this community is inclusive and welcome everyone. And then we can get it together, get it stronger. That is for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Yeah.
Ding.
Yes. My turn. I too felt that the Yule sitting was very productive and we had good discussion, and I'm glad we're kind of bringing it back to having had a chance to think a little bit more on some of the details. Regarding the housing, I too tend to agree that should be a upper priority. I also am pleased that we are adding workforce housing beyond just the affordable housing capital A, and I also am pleased that we're going to add unhoused, because as I sit on the COC board, I lust for the opportunity to create some sort of service provider within our city limits for the unhoused. I think incentivizing is great, and I would like to suggest we don't limit it to just affordable housing. I think a lot of the incentives already are there for affordable housing. What's not there is for the missing middle housing. So I would really like to broaden our incentives all the way around. And that is also creates, the overarching umbrella is something that has not taken place or has crept into our community, is we really do want to create an environment where people will want to come to Sonoma and build. And so that to me is something that's a big goal, and I'm excited about with a new team on board that reality is going to take place. I have no comment on the economic development and revenue stewardship other than I support it being a real strong focus given the deficit that we were fortunate to be able to make up by just simply taking a draw against our reserves, but I think we need to be very mindful of that. Under the climate, I'm so excited to have the word trees capitalized, and I certainly support that in many, many different fronts. So I think that is great. In terms of the Parks and Rec, again, I think this could be potentially something very good. I look forward to staff exploring the feasibility and what the details are going to be to that, both from a program standpoint as well as from an economic standpoint. And I love to see us, as we've talked about, the elevating up the cemeteries. And also regarding it's noted as the plaza plan, I do want to just reiterate that the vision for the enhancement or revitalization of the downtown goes well beyond just the plaza. And so we were talking, at least concept-wise, from the Overlook Trail all the way through and out. So I'm really excited about that being something we'll be able to further discussion. The last item, if I can get back to my list, is I'm going to take a little different approach. I would like not to see annexation on this year's list. And I have many reasons for that. And part of it is I feel right now that it's almost a non-starter. What I don't like is going down some avenue where ultimately it's going to say it's not practical. It cannot be done. There's a saying that says we don't want to take on debt we can't pay. And again, that's just a big nut that concerns me. Probably the one that I would like to throw out the idea of deferring, we'll say kind of like cannabis, maybe deferred a year, is the fact that regardless if we move forward in any fashion, it's going to take staff's time. And there are, as it was mentioned earlier, and I've written it down, we have 4 critical positions right now to fill. Building official, planning reviewer, because Joe Burrow has just submitted his resignation. We have a senior planner that we have to fill and a finance director. Those are key positions that I think can solidify us into kind of then being able to take on more. And I just am not supportive of diverting any current energies from staff, particularly our city manager, into any involvement as far as at this point on the annexation idea. I simply think that we have other pressing issues that need to address, and I will go back and reiterate the pressing the idea of housing. I want to go back and reemphasize too is we still are experiencing the skill set of our city manager, our new planning director, our community development director. Neither of them have been here a year. I really want them to focus on solidifying City Hall first. There were things that have been done. There was a spring-specific plan that was talked about that the county was pursuing. I have no idea why did that die on the vine. It wasn't initiated by the city. It was looked upon. So I would love to find out if there was some information on that. I also believe in my own sampling that there may be some people that recognize the value of being part of the city, but that's not all the residents of the Springs area saying that they want to be part of the city. And of course, with any population, you're going to get both sides of it. I, I, I don't think that we're giving the wrong message at this point. If we do not keep the annexation as one of the five. I just think that we have enough other priorities that, whether it's again the housing, the update of the general plan, fulfilling all of our staff needs, looking at the feasibility of the Parks Department. So I just want to reiterate that I would love not to direct 20% of our goals and priorities to annexation at this point in time.
All right, thank you. Well, I thought the goal-setting process was well done. I think that it was very productive. I think the items that we came up with are good. I, too, have reservations about annexation. Having been working with the county group that is having these conversations, I'm still trying to understand the motivation, the justification for even looking at this. It's something that's been talked about in the Valley for a long time. And Mr. Lynch did an editorial indicating that while there's in the past, there's been a lot of discussion in support of the concept of annexation in the Valley. Everybody got excited about it. It goes to vote, and it's always been voted down. The only people that really are communicating to me about annexation are people that live in the unincorporated areas. During the campaign, people expressed interest in having greater participation in city affairs because they are taxpayers here in the sense of sales tax, but they don't live in the city and they can't participate to the level that they may be interested in. I think we've actually taken some steps to address that by looking at our commissions and adding positions to the commissions that don't require residency in the city. And again, providing a certain amount of participation, if you will, for those that live in the unincorporated area. It'd be nice to think that they were representing a larger group than themselves. So having worked with the county committee that has been meeting, I'm still not clear on the driving factor. I'll have to admit, Larry Barnett mentioned something that had crossed my mind with regards to why doesn't the communities of Boys Hot Springs, Agua Caliente, why don't they incorporate and become their own respective community? And we can come back to that. And so anyway, I too think that, looking at this, if there is a simple way to get a temperature, and I'm thinking so simple as an online survey of some kind, not scientifically proven, but, who's interested? And again, we are representing the people in this community, recognizing that the community itself is quite large. If you look at the Valley, but the city of Sonoma that we're elected to represent, I'm not sure that this is in the best interest. This effort on annexation, unification, is in the best interest of what we are doing here in Sonoma when we have other priorities that seem to be greater or certainly more manageable. So that's kind of where I am. Now, as I look at this list, then unfortunately, I think I hear that everybody agrees on the first four, if not in any particular order. But the first four goals here are good ones, and we support. I think the fifth one is one that we could do a couple of things. We could look at that as a separate goal and see if there's support for it. And then the other option is we could hear from the city manager on, having heard some of the discussion here, if there is an approach that is low impact in terms of finances and commitment, that could be helpful for us.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And listening to what you're all saying, one option is that as it could stay as a goal, which essentially is an indication to me that I can move forward and spend some time on it. What I can commit to the council is to develop essentially a work plan on what we would do over the next 12 months related to this goal, and bring that back to council for your input. That would lay out the time it would take from any staff, the coordination we'd work with the county, and any funding needed to actually carry that off if there's any cost sharing to do some sort of survey or outreach. So I could bring that back as a package to the council if that's of interest, and if that helps the conversation. I can commit to that.
Yeah, that is good. Good suggestion. I like it.
His suggestion or my suggestion? I'm confused.
His suggestion. And also you asked him if any in the detail work. Yeah, I agree, both of you. Yeah, because goal is one thing. Also, is a message. Tell to the community we do more and study and do some due diligence. Qualify something a little bit better, and then we will feel more comfortable and confident. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. For Councilmember Farrar-Rivas.
Yeah. So I actually think this issue of our neighbors in the Springs is one of the most important issues that we face in this city. I don't see it's something by putting it off. It's like, for me, the same as women's suffrage for voting rights being put off, for recognizing, gay and lesbian rights, for recognizing African American. I actually do, because I think we have our neighbors where 1 in 5 families are food insecure. Where families are living together, multiple families in houses, to be able to get by and to survive. And our high school, 60% of the students that are in the high school, I don't know if it's 60% are from the Springs, but I know they're Latinx or Latino and Latina. And the Valley is the community that together we're going to be able to solve issues around housing, issues around economic development, issues around climate. So for me, the sooner that we start acting together, and whether it's annexation, it may not be annexation, but it's doing the survey. It's saying, what are the services that the communities that are not in the city of Sonoma that they need, that they're not getting, if they're not getting them? How are we, as their neighbors and as the community that depends on a lot of that community for services here in Sonoma, what are we doing to make sure that the valley is healthy too? The whole valley is healthy. So, and I'm not saying, as I say this, that annexation, I'm not saying that that's the end thing, but we need to say, how do we solve this inequality? What are the things that we need to do so that we start working on that today? I don't think it's something that you can put off. So I think it needs to be on there. I appreciate there being a work plan so we could see what needs to happen, but I would be really, really upset to see it just, kind of drop off as a priority because of the need that people have of our, that are our neighbors, that are our community.
So can I query you on that? Because I've been struggling in my own mind as far as what services that we have that they don't have. And I think if I ticked them off, and I think I may have shared them earlier, we have the same sheriff's department for safety. We have the same fire district. We have the same, the library district is open. We have the same hospital district. We have the same water source, albeit it's being delivered by 2. So I'm not sure what you're identifying as, other than the fact that from a housing standpoint, we just have 2 different. If you look at how the Springs evolved, historically evolved as, summer homes from people coming up from, and so it wasn't this deliberate case we're saying, well, we're going to build just small homes here and we're going to have big homes in Sonoma. That's not the way the history of things evolved. So I'm still trying to understand today where the disparity is.
Well, I think if you look at zoning between, in the city of Sonoma, and you look at the number of single-unit houses and where most houses that are, multifamily houses, and you look at the opportunities that exist in both of the areas, that what happens is you have a much greater voice from in regards to funding, because I believe that people in the Springs don't have a very strong voice in the county. And yes, I agree too that yes, we may very well now have a supervisor that's from the valley, but there's not really a place for them to be involved in kind of what is the overall economic housing future of the valley. And I know there's the MAC and there's all of these other, but they don't have the same, as far as I can see, they don't have the same power that having a seat on a city council has, to make some of the decisions that actually end up taking apart some of the inherent, unfortunately, issues that have created it so certain races have had advantages of generational wealth transfer and other people have not. And I don't say we're going to solve all that, but I think to ignore that there's not an equity issue here, and also to ignore that we don't work together, and we start thinking of like, what does it look like so that how we do work together. I think that the sooner we do that, I think we're going to be in a much better position economically and socially, all of us going forward.
Did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I'll throw in public works. After the last storms, I drove around and the city of Sonoma was, there were people taking care of things, and there was more problems in the Springs area. Some of those roads really need some attention, and they have to get, I showed this book last time, or I referred to it, that there was one project that's not funded in the Springs, which is the Donald Gap. That's it. And if you don't think that's a lack of, representation, I mean, to me that speaks volumes. There's a lot of need in terms of safety. The city luckily jumped in and helped on the intersection on Highway 12 and Verano, but tragedies had to happen first. I mean, there's a lot of things that I feel have not been completely represented for the folks in that area, and perhaps it will change. Perhaps it will change with new leadership, perhaps because somebody is from there and they know the area. But the reality is the first supervisorial district is a majority City of Santa Rosa district now, because of the population decline in the valley and because of the population increase going north. So the majority of the people in the first supervisor district, no matter what we do, will be, Oakmont is the city of Santa Rosa. So they are being taken care of by a city, and there's this whole swath of people who are not. And they could have representation on this very body, but again, I'm not jumping to those conclusions. I'm just identifying things I've heard over the years that people have raised. And I think the suggestion from the city manager to just sort of sketch out what a work plan would look like before we dump a lot of money in it, get people's hopes up, do all this sort of thing. Let's just say this is what it looks like. I think that's a fair thing to do. This issue's been out there for a long time. There's a lot of mythology around it, and it would just give us an opportunity to clarify what it is and what it isn't. And by the end of that year, we could come back here and everyone go, thanks very much, we're good, carry on. And that's fine. But I think we can't ignore it. And, And I think the suggestion is fair. I mean, I don't want to put as much effort into it as housing. I know they're not prioritized. I keep coming back to it. Housing. But I think putting a work plan together and at least letting people know this is what the steps are, this is what it looks like, these are the facts, these are the, FAQs, and then come back in a year and maybe we just take it off and say that's fair. We've done it, we looked at it, but I just don't want to ignore it.
All right. No, Mr. Wellander.
Quick question. You weren't able to answer the question last time when we had our goal setting. Talk to me a little bit about your timeline as far as you're saying spend a little bit of time. And what, as I'm aware of, that there was something called the Consensus Building Institute. Did a study government service gaps in Sonoma Valley and explored possible annexations. Can't we start with that, or where is that, as far as a document that has been focused on what we're talking about tonight, rather than saying we need to do something independent?
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from council, and a good initial first step would be to gather community sentiment. And a lot of what you're referring to is more detailed, would be a next step if we went into further assessment and studies and infrastructure and needs for the community. And I think there's potential to do a community assessment or community sentiment assessment fairly rapidly with the support of, I know we have the county, but also the Catalyst Fund is out there potentially to help support that effort to get those initial thoughts and input from the community that I can bring back to the council. So what I would recommend is within the next couple months, I could bring back, here's the sketch to the Councilmember Lowe's point, here's the timeline, here's what it would look like, here's the amount of effort we would spend on staff time, here's the funding we would pay, if it's a shared cost or if it's coming straight from our general fund, and let you provide me feedback on that, if that's something you want to launch or not. And so I can do that fairly quickly.
So
and I think that would define what you're looking for.
Would that include then a fairly detailed sequence of steps that would go from, if we move forward on the feasibility of annexation to the celebration? I mean, would you be able to provide that?
I could definitely provide that outline of the steps it would take and the various decisions along the way from your body, this body, the county, the community, LAFCO, everyone. I can lay that out in terms of those decision points.
And so am I also hearing that this study didn't exist, or this study didn't produce anything of input? This goes back to July of 2023.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't have anything of value, but it would be at a later step. What I'm saying, what I would probably bring forward to you in terms of a work plan would be purely for community sentiment, not going further than that.
Okay, thank you.
One very quick last comment. Oh, did you want to go first?
No, I was going to give you permission to speak.
I know I have a hard time with permission here, but it's good. But so one of the other things I think is the benefit of doing this in the way that we're talking about is, really community oriented. What are the issues? Is I'm hoping that through this process, it makes more transparent what the real issues are. And I, as well, same as Councilmember Lowe said, I'm not saying annexation is the answer, but by looking at annexation or looking at what happens if there is a bigger area under one city, you start looking at what are the issues we're really trying to solve, and how do those become more transparent? And once those are more transparent, there's the ability for us to say, well, maybe we're not annexing, but we can do this, and this is going to really help us here in this way. And really looking at it, I believe that what we're looking for is what is going to be beneficial for the city of Sonoma and the Springs and the Valley. What are the things that doing things together that are going to make us all in a better position, 10 years from now, 10 generations from now? That's what I'm looking for out of it.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to consider the pause and discussion an indication that I'm looking for a motion.
And Mayor, I apologize to extend this one little bit. I want to acknowledge that I did leave off the values, and I think that was brought up in public comment. It was brought up by the council that values were talked about as part of the goal setting, and that council agreed that looking at all these goals with the value lens, and I'll just read through those 4 that you came up with just so it's on the record. You talked about equity, you talked about economic, social, and environment. You talked about collaborative and service-oriented, and sustainability as the lens is to look through these goals. So we have those documented from that conversation. They're not part of these goals, but it again is something how we're looking at moving forward. So I want to acknowledge that they're not on this list.
All right.
I remember that day you listed it as our mission, 3 mission. But if this is the goal, and finally we realized goal, that means we needed to do and invest more time and energy to achieve these kind of goal. So I agree. That is right. You didn't do anything wrong, miss anything, because that is 3 items, and economically, socially, and environmentally. That is the 3 factors we need to consider when we reach our goal. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So motion.
I move approval of the 2024 council goals: housing, economic development, revenue stewardship, parks and recreation, community services, climate mitigation and adaptation, and a 12-month work plan on annexation unification, with no decision to be made on that.
I second that.
Call for it.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas,
Aye.
Councilmember Wellander,
No.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Gurney.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-1.
Okay.
Flying along, item 9.3.
No flying along. That's
Introduction of
that's
an
at the end.
ordinance adding Chapter 10.22 to Title 10 of the Sonoma Municipal Code regulating sideshows, street races, and reckless driving exhibitions. Chief Cutting.
Mayor, council members, thank you very much for your time this evening. I know it's been a long meeting so far, and I'll try not to take up too much of your time. I know at least one of you has a fear of adding ordinances or laws and just pure prevention. And so I'd like to sort of lay some foundation for why this is in front of you, beyond what's in the document. Summer of 2016, I was running a street crimes unit, a gang unit, out for the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office. My supervisor came to me and said that he had been receiving word that there were sideshow type street racing taking place in a county facility down off Sebastopol Road in the Roseland area. I went down and observed, and I saw initially in the beginning of the summer, 5-6 cars driving recklessly. We shoot them off with our presence, and they left. As weeks progressed, every week we'd go back down to that same lot, an old Albertsons. It was a very nice flat surface that they liked. The crowd grew from 5 to 6 cars to 30 to 40 cars to 100 cars to 100 plus cars. I finally went back, and my supervisor said, "We need to think out of the box and figure out how to stop this." I said, "Why don't we put some gravel down?" He said, "Great idea." So he went to the county operations, and they employed what they said was gravel. The next week I went back down there, and I saw what I would describe as this. On its side, it was concrete blocks. There were about 80 of them. They are still there today. They're painted. They are now art, going back to the art discussion from earlier. Progressing that, Santa Rosa annexed that area, and it was no longer my problem. It became Santa Rosa Police Department's problem. And in the years after that, every summer, I went to that same district, and we did the same procedures of trying to chase these sideshows out, which had grown from 60 to 80 cars to multiple hundred cars every single time. These were not members of that Roseland community. They were trespassers, hijackers, I don't know what you want to call it, but they were taking over the neighborhood in very violent ways. This grew In 2022, the summer of 2022, I was a watch commander out of the sheriff's office, Santa Rosa, and I received a call from Sonoma Police Department who said that they had heard there was a group of vehicles amassing at the high school parking lot. Myself and about 8 patrol cars began heading out this way. We knew what it was about. We had heard from the East Bay Police Departments that they had 300 to 400 cars en route to Santa Rosa to conduct sideshows. So we responded out towards Sonoma. Luckily, before even getting out of the city limits of Santa Rosa, that group had left the parking lot and had headed towards Santa Rosa. That night ensued 7 to 8 different pursuits, multiple sideshows. We would chase them from one location to another location because we had no enforcement action we could take other than the vehicle drivers themselves, and they protected them with these other vehicles and pedestrians. 2022, the summer of May of 2022, the Roseland community wanted to take back Cinco de Mayo after COVID precautions where we weren't allowing people to amass in groups. So the Roseland community had put together their first Cinco de Mayo event in many years, 3 years actually. And we, law enforcement, were staying away from that event and allowing them to enjoy it peacefully, as it was a community-driven event, which quickly got hijacked by a sideshow that came up from, again, out of the area. I was present. I was present at the intersection of West and Sebastopol Road. The sideshow the road was blocked off. I was stopped in my car. I had 2 other deputies. We were in an unmarked car. They didn't know who we were. And 5 to 6 shots went off about 20 yards away from us. And a subject was shot at that very sideshow. So these events begin as people with some very fancy cars, very high-end work that they've done, and they hijack areas. They take them over, they destroy them, they cause property damage, and they do all kinds of other issues which go to shootings. If you may have read in the paper about a month and a half ago in Stockton, the San Joaquin County had to come in and address a sideshow which amassed 88 cars being towed. They have a similar ordinance. They actually have a task force, a sideshow task force that they've done. The County of Sonoma's Chiefs Association has designed a protocol which addresses this fact in Sonoma County. So when a sideshow happens, all of the agencies within the county will address and send units applicable to the size of the agency to respond to that agency, as long as there's an ordinance in place which allows them to have some enforcement action beyond just the drivers of the initial cars. That's the foundation. I apologize, I know it's a little bit long there, but I think it's important to understand that this is not just a preventive ordinance. This is an actual ordinance that will likely have to be employed at some time in this community. Sideshows, they're described as an informal exhibition of automotive stunts, often held in vacant parking lots and public street intersections and local neighborhoods. I don't know how many of you have driven up and down Broadway and looked at that roadway and said, man, what a place to do donuts. I can literally just take my car and have such a blast on this, because we don't think like that, right? But these people do. They look at those roads and they think of just exactly what I just described, and they can block it off and make it very difficult. They block the intersections off with cars, with pedestrians. We have no enforcement action away from an ordinance like this. For any of those people, the only enforcement action we have is the existing vehicle code violations for when they get in these vehicles and they drive. I have sent 2 deputies in the end of last year to a sideshow enforcement course out of the East Bay. California Highway Patrol put it on, and they are well versed in all of these laws and are willing to employ them. However, this ordinance would provide a better tool. So what happens to the city? As I said, damage to property. These cars, they're driven by late teens, early 20s, sometimes into the 30s. Some of them are trucks, some of them are cars. They're hot rods. They're the old, what we all thought of in high school as a hot rod and a souped up car. They're that, but a lot more expensive. They put tire marks all over the roadway. They will destroy all of the striping on the roads. They will rip them up, and they will inevitably, somebody's going to lose control, which they do at almost every event. They'll strike other cars. Noise pollution. If you live in the area of where this is taking place, not only is the smell horrifying, but so is the sound, and it goes on for quite a time until we can actually get into it and stop it. Environmental impact on air quality. I mean, we talk about that a lot in this community, and the vehicle traffic. It's pretty horrible. And then the danger. I mean, between the violent actions that take place at them, I've witnessed a shooting, to the accidents that happen just from their inability to control these powerful machines. What does it do? It gives us the ability to enforce a misdemeanor crime on those who are participating, watching, and stopping the ability for law enforcement to get to the actual activity itself. As I said, in Stockton, they just did this, and they went in and were able to seize 88 cars. I will never do that in Sonoma, just to be very clear. And it would never be the intent, just because it's a nightmare to try to understand that. But it is necessary to have this to be able to at least stop it. Also, anybody that promotes it or encourages it, this is done through a network of applications, online and social networking pages. They communicate. We oftentimes get word when they're coming up into the area. The East Bay is very good. They have task force for this, and they do monitor the social network. And so they will oftentimes give us a heads up when they're coming. And then this ordinance would be treated as a misdemeanor. It would be up to the district attorney's office to seek those prosecutions. It also allows us to put some liability on any damages that are caused as a result of it. That is my presentation, and I apologize for the lengthy foundational part, but I think it's important to understand why I'm bringing what I would refer to as a potentially preventative policy for you guys.
All right, thank you, Chief Cutting. Any questions from the council for the chief?
It's very good. Yeah, thank you. So in updated this kind of issue. Although in Sonoma here it's nice, small, not like in Roseland, but definitely, we need to have the rule, and we need to carry that out to protect our community. Thank you for your hard work.
Any Councilman Lowe?
So I hear some pretty loud car racing in the evenings often. Does this apply to sort of, I don't know if it's just exhibition of speed or if they're actually, engaged in some racing or whatever. Does this apply to that? Though you could pull someone over for that?
So we could pull them over for the actions they're doing. I don't need this ordinance to deal
Right.
with the one-off, the one person who hits the stop sign and accelerates and leaves tire marks. There's a lot of vehicle codes that already address that type of driving, just the pure reckless driving.
Okay.
So does it apply to that? In language, yes, it's one or more. However, in reality, I don't need this ordinance to address
Right.
that problem.
Okay, because it seems like there's more than one. I mean, and it goes on for a period of time. So it's not like they just peeled out on, one stop sign. It sounds like more. But I mean, I'm wholeheartedly in favor of this. I've seen this stuff go on in different cities, and whatever tools you need to make our place safer, then I thank you for your service.
From Vice Mayor, did you have something? I couldn't quite tell you.
No, I found the
Okay.
answer in the resolution.
Excellent job. Okay, so we're going to take some public comment, and well, let's just see. Is there anybody here from the public that would like to comment on this?
Hi again. I stayed late, so I might as well. Tom Conlon. So I live just outside the city limits, and I believe maybe it was even synchronous with the events that were just described back in 2022. We had some donut spinning in our neighborhood up Robinson Road north of Verano. I don't believe we had any police involvement at all, or that happened like a couple of weekends in a row is what I recall. Again, last summer we had some activity as well. So as a resident, those are the comments. Then also as a social anthropologist, in the previous conversation we just had about annexation and inclusivity, I would just point out that this kind of behavior is what happens when we have inequality in our society, and not everybody feels the same degree of inclusion in the rules in the society. So I wouldn't have brought this matter forward. I don't think we have a problem in the city right now, but I can see the benefit of having such an ordinance on the books. But I think if you're going to be making these kinds of protective actions in the city, we should be thinking about mitigation actions to keep inequality in society from getting worse than it is right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, no other public comment. Chief Cutting, I do have just a couple quick questions. Well, number one, a statement. For those of you who don't think that this is happening here, wake up, because it is. I mean, I see the evidence and I hear it. And so it is happening here. So thank you for bringing this forward. My question is, in light of Robinson Road and the unincorporated area, does the county have a similar ordinance in place?
Yes, this ordinance was presented in early December, and I believe it was considered an ordinance at the end of December, or maybe it was late November, but it was recently passed by the Board of Supervisors as an ordinance, almost very, very similar to ours.
Good.
As have Santa Rosa, Rohnert Park, Windsor, and Petaluma, and I think Cotati has one before their council as well.
All right, thank you. And one last question. Has there been any discussion with the Raceway providing an opportunity? They did the dragging program on a Wednesday night to try to get kids off the street and onto a more safe environment to race. Sideshow stuff.
So they do have a drift night, and we also have Top the Cop, and we actually send some of our deputies from the PD out to that.
Okay.
It's once a week during the summer months, and then the drift night is a different night. Also, I believe it's once a week. I don't know that the groups that we gather are the same as that.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. All right, back to the count. Yes.
So one last question. Do you think that by having such ordinances, it actually reduces the need of, having to arrest more people in the future?
So we haven't seen the effect of this in Sonoma County yet, so it would be hard for me to answer that. I think this is a very good preventive tool for using that language. We will be advertising and have been. Santa Rosa has been, when they passed this ordinance, they published it Baywide through their social media, and with the intent of projecting the knowledge that this is in effect and that if you attend, you may be arrested. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to be arrested. It's the tool to be able to enforce public safety.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Back to the council. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval. Oh,
Okay,
we're-
go ahead.
I'll second it.
Oh, okay.
You may approve.
I just move to approve, to add the ordinance. I will not repeat.
If you, Councilmember Ding, if you would humor me by reading the,
Okay.
what is suggested in the
I
on the
would like
agenda.
to move to approve an ordinance adding chapter 10.22 to the Title 10 of the Sonoma Municipal Code, regulating sideshows, street races, and the reckless driving exhibitions.
Second.
Okay, we have first and second.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas,
Aye.
Councilmember Wellander,
Yes.
Councilmember Ding,
Aye.
Mayor Gurney.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, that concludes the show for tonight. Thank you very much.